Awesome. Can everyone hear me? All right. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. And I really appreciate you joining us for the last and final block of sessions at our 2023 IC3 conference. I know it's been a long 2 days, but I am extremely excited to be moderating this panel. And one of the main reasons for it is because over the last 2 days, we've been discussing a lot about the landscape of education in India, counseling in every school. What can we do to better support our students as university reps? What can we do to sort of better have relationships with you guys and your counseling teams? And we haven't really heard from the students, which I think are the most important players in this game. I see a lot of nods. And we are joined by 3 fantastic students today who I'm going to let introduce themselves in a quick bit. But they've been running around tirelessly over the last 2 days to make sure that this conference has been going on really well and seamlessly for us. So before we even introduce them, can we just give them a round of applause? Because there's a lot of nervousness as well in the crowd. And they've been very brave to do this. So I very much appreciate it. And I know you guys do as well. So my name is Caran Aurora. I work at Northeastern University and do international enrollment management for them. I'm joined by one of my colleagues, Anushka Sapra, as well. India is one of our favorite markets to come to. Hyderabad is one of our favorite cities. And I think, like I said, to hear from the students themselves really allows us to better do our jobs as best as we possibly can, whether it's in the counseling office, whether it's in the admissions committee. It really gives us a better perspective. As I mentioned today, I think we have been tirelessly talking about, ethics in counseling, trends, all these other great topics that have great buzzwords. But I'm very, very keen to really understand from the students, what are they going through, right? What can we do to better support them through a very tough pandemic period, a very tough post-pandemic period, grades, artificial intelligence, chat GPT. So we've got a few questions that we are going to move around and themes that we're going to explore, but I definitely would like and appreciate you all to make them your audience in that, ask them as many questions as you can. So can we start with Neethi? Introduce yourself, give us a sense of name, where your school is, curriculum, and all that good stuff.
Namaste, everybody. I'm Niyati Verma, and I'm currently studying in 11th grade in Meridian School, Banjara Hills, CBSE. And I'm hoping to pursue my management studies in one of the top institutes right here in India. So yeah, that's about me.
Thanks, Niyati.
So I'm Yashna. I'm from the Gaudium School. I'm doing the IB program, and I'm interested towards the business side, so hopefully an economics major.
First of all, thank you so much, everyone, for coming. I know it's the last session, the last block of sessions, which also means that there'll be a lot of big names talking in all the other rooms, but you still chose to come here and listen to us. So thank you so much. I'm Aman Ali Khan. I study at the Hyderabad Public School, Begumpet. I am studying towards the ISC. I plan on doing law after I complete my 12th grade. And yes.
Awesome. Fantastic. Thank you, guys. So already everything from those introductions, you can see we've got a bunch of very thoughtful, very curious, very strong-minded students on our panel. The first question I want to open up with, guys, is obviously very tough pandemic that all of us had to face. And I think especially the students had to deal with a lot of challenges. You guys were in grade 8, 9, 10, respectively. Can you just talk to us a little bit about what the pandemic was like for you guys in terms of classes, in terms of assessment, and from my perspective, most importantly, in terms of just interaction with not only your counselors, but your peers as well? We can just go down the line. Yeah.
Okay. Well, as you all know, 2 years of pandemic. During the pandemic, I was studying in my 8th and 9th grade. And I can easily say that my 9th grade was so far one of the worst years of my lives, because mainly it was 2021 and COVID was at its peak. And, there was always a fear around us as of what will happen next. And we lost a lot of people in my family. And I was dealing with a lot of mental changes, physical changes, emotional changes. I mean, I was 14. So, and as many of you know, 9th grade is that grade when you change your educational standard totally. It becomes harder. And for me to do that online was pretty scary for me. But I'm very, very, very happy to be back at school, run around my corridors, and look at a physical teacher in front of me. After 2 years, actually seeing a physical teacher in front of me, it was amazing. However, I wouldn't completely disregard online learning. yes, 2 years of facing only that Microsoft Teams in front of you every morning is very frustrating. But online learning has made a phenomenal change in our lives, right? It has opened us to hybrid learning. I can sit here right now in Hyderabad and be listening to, say, a SAT prep course given by someone in Canada. And I don't think any of us would have imagined that was possible before. So yeah, online learning is hard, but it has its pros. So yeah.
So online learning for me was was actually in ninth and 10th grade. So it was more of a reality check because in ninth we didn't really care much about the exams. You weren't as serious about it. So my entire ninth grade was mostly classes running on the background tabs while I was watching some show on Netflix, like the entire year. And I was from the CBSE board. So the questions and all mostly are usually repetitive, right? So you've got Byju's and all of that with ready-made answers, step to step. So worksheets, exams, I will admit, some of them, there was a bit of cheating and all involved in there. Okay, I hope I'm not. It's fine.
You're absolutely fine. I'm glad you guys are being this candid. This is great.
I did not.
So the entire ninth grade was that, but in 10th grade, this was the time when the COVID has sort of cooled down, and then you start coming back to school, and it was a very to or fro situation because like you didn't know whether your birds was going to be online or offline. So even though they say it's going to be offline and you have to come to school, there was always hope out there saying, you know what, maybe it'll be online. So maybe we can just relax a little bit. So we gave two birds and all of that. But in 10th, really, there was a huge problem because the entire study ethic of mine was completely reversed. Wake up whenever you want, whenever you're studying. So that was heavily impacted. And my 10th grades too were sort of like, if I wrote it before, like during normal classes, I feel like I could have done much better. But I think even though there's a problems with that, I think during the pandemic I figured out a lot of interests of mine. Like now I'm a video editor, I'm into film production, all of that. Without the pandemic I would have never really found this interest. So even though there were a few difficulties, I am just glad of the time I've been through, because ninth and 10th, it was a important time of my life, and I'm glad I've got to experience both.
Thanks, Yashna.
Um, so I honestly did not cheat in any of the online exams. But although I did not cheat in the exams, I did sleep through the first periods of the day, shamelessly. The class was ongoing. I understand that there are a lot of problems that a lot of students around the world faced because of the pandemic, especially the underprivileged among us who did not have access to schools, leave alone to online schools. So to be given the privilege of online schools is something that we were blessed to have despite the pandemic. So after putting that out there, I'd like to say that unlike a lot of people, I saw a lot of advantages because of the pandemic and because of online school. The first was the extracurricular exposure I got because of online school and the kind of access that built for me. I was able to take part in national level competitions that otherwise would be logistically difficult. I was able to take part in national level MUNs and debates. I went up, thankfully, all the way up to the Oxford Schools debate, which is one of the most prestigious debate competitions in the world. And that wouldn't have been as possible if it weren't for the pandemic, if it weren't for the online mode. So that extracurricular exposure and that access that it had for everyone was something that we don't have otherwise. I had time and I had the space to pursue university level courses from platforms like Coursera and edX. And that's just not me. And that's just not about my access to those resources. But the kind of resources that suddenly came out on the internet because there was a pandemic, and a lot of these resources being free, that kind of access was never there in the offline mode. So I have two uncomfortable questions I'd like everyone to think about. I hope they are not uncomfortable questions, but if they are, I would love for you to think about them. The first is that why didn't we ever have that kind of access otherwise? And why don't we have that access to those resources for all students, whether it's co-curricular or whether it's extracurricular, whether it's academic? The second question that I'd like to ask is, why were we looking forward to sleeping in the morning and missing school? Why were we so happy when the government declared a lockdown and the government said that we will not be having offline school anymore? Why were we so looking forward to that break, and why were we so looking forward to having online classes and not having to go all the way to school? Is there a fault in the way our education system is working? Is there a fault in the way in which offline schooling actually works? So please do think about that.
I'm just going to take a second to just absorb what we've just heard. For reference, I've not told them how to answer these questions whatsoever. We've had about a 10-minute discussion over the last 3 days. Unbelievable amounts of depth. I think a lot of us in the audience, whether you're a university rep, whether you're a guidance counselor, whether you're a school principal, we have heard and seen our students go through a lot of what these three have just described. But the reality is, I love how each of them have sort of highlighted both the positives and the negatives of that difficult pandemic, and how it shaped us into being better educators, regardless of which our roles are right now. So definitely, I mean, Aman, I think you can be where I'm standing right now, and I think I want to switch seats with you. But food for thought for sure. So let's pivot a little bit, guys. Let's talk a little bit about, obviously, you guys are in grades 11 and 12 respectively, understanding different nuances of what the next move might look like after high school graduation. So as we think about that next step, which is important, overwhelming sometimes, but also very exciting, can you talk to us a little bit about the factors that are going into what you're thinking about doing and where you might think about doing it after you graduate high school? Let's start with Yashna this time.
Me?
Yeah.
Okay, so as I said, I'm usually mostly all over the place. You know, my interests are very, like I said, film production. That's something I've been doing. And I'm also like in the IB, one of my HL courses is economics. So if you would have told me a year ago that I'd be in economics and that's something I'd be thinking of majoring in, I would have never believed it. It's just something that's evolved over the year. And the fact is that of where I wanna pursue it is I was looking for colleges where I can do both economics or like a business somewhere in that area. I would like to explore. I'm planning to going in, hopefully undecided. I also want to make sure that I don't leave behind my love for film production and all of this. So I think most in India, I was looking at Ashoka. There's not that many universities where you can have business on a good level along with this. So that's why I was mostly looking at the United States, where I hopefully my passion for filmmaking and all stays alive.
Go ahead, Neet.
Yeah, so as many of you know, I'm in 11th grade. And till last year, I had so many interests all over the place. I'm interested in drama, in political science, in management, and it was really hard to decide where exactly first put a pin on what I want to do, then put a pin on the map as to where I want to study. Finally, I decided to go with management as a major and then go into an institution which gives me an opportunity to do various minors. And till last year, I was thinking, you know what, only abroad institutions have this kind of thing where I can pursue so many minors, so many electives along with my majors. But then this beautiful lady sitting right here in yellow, she told me that a lot of institutions here in India also offer various courses. And I started thinking about where should I go? India, abroad, what should I do? And so my parents told me, whatever you decide, if you're okay with it, if you've decided with like an open mind, then it's fine. So I thought about it and I said, if I'm living in India, if I'm in this beautifully diverse country, why go abroad? Like, I get that abroad you get to meet different kinds of people, you can adapt to it, you learn adaptability skills, and there are a lot of opportunities. But I myself haven't discovered the different opportunities here in India. There are educational opportunities, and there are so many different people. If I go down to Kerala, there's a different person. If I go up to Rajasthan, there's a different person. One person speaking different language, eating different foods, dressing different ways, having different cultures. So I thought, let me discover my country wholly. Let me contribute to the economic development of my country first. Then I'll think about other countries. Which is why I've decided India.
After that very patriotic answer, I'll be very honest and just name the factors that that I'm considering when I look at a university. The first one for me is the independence in thought and study that is offered at that university. In fact, that is required by the university for me to experience when I am studying there. The second is the quality of teaching. For me, the professors and how much they credited in their respective academic circles, the way in which the teaching happens in the classrooms of the university is very important for me personally. The campus and the environment in the university is also very important. I tend to love history and historic places. So universities that are old and well established with beautiful buildings is something is also a factor in deciding where. And I think the last factor is also the prestige of the university. And I'll be very candid about this. As much as we would love to say that wherever you go, whatever kind of name the university has, it depends on your experience and what you make of it. That is sadly not true. And so the prestige of the university does matter to me.
Thanks, guys. A lot of interesting themes. Again, very diverse set of answers. And I think a lot of what we've been discussing in our sessions with our counterparts have come across as themes again, right? Diversity, we talk about prestige, we talk about ethics, we talk about a lot of things over the last 2 days. And our students who we're doing it for are, very well versed with those themes as well. Going to shift gears again. We talk a lot about stress. We've spoken a lot about the mental health of our students. We've spoken about post-pandemic, what they were going through. I want to open it out to you guys to talk about at this stage and this juncture of where you are, say, in the application process or just in high school in general, right? With the two of you all in the thick of the application process, Niyati just having sort of transitioned to grade 11. What is stress currently for you? What is the biggest cause of stress? And then I'll ask the third part after it. So Aman, do you want to go ahead and?
Yeah, all right. So I've already opened my application and I've started applying. I've started filling in the forms. The one thing that personally stresses me a lot is the essay component, especially the essays that have a specific question and required to answer in a given context are not so hard to answer. But the essays that are a personal statement or an SOP that you just talk about yourself, give us your USP. Why should we admit you? That is the most stressful kind of question that any application can ask. That's what stresses me personally the most, because that open canvas, me and a lot of my fellow applicants find it difficult to understand what we fill in to that open canvas. What are university admission officers actually looking for? And with, I think, the US application specifically, it's just that it is so overwhelming. There are so many universities that you put in on that common app. There's no limit. At least in the UK, you say the UK says you can only put in 5, but then common app is like put in as many as you want, all kinds of universities. So there are so many universities and there are supplemental essays, and then there is a personal statement involved. And there are 10 activities that you can list. So there's so many components to that single application that just the size of it is itself overwhelming. So I think for a lot of my fellow applicants, that becomes a stressful part.
So for me, what's stressful is everything he just described. Common app, having too many options and all of that. And the problem is with me, at least I'm the first person who's at least who's thinking of going abroad for an undergrad degree. So there's not my parents, they don't really know much about it or whatever. And the problem is that I cannot really, there's no particular, I haven't made it, I don't have it particular in my mind that I do want to go to the United States abroad and I want to pursue this particular thing. As I've said, again, interests are still, a high contrast. It's hard to make out this is exactly what I want to do. And as we know, my parents would appreciate proper planning. They're like, Yashna, what do you want to do? Business, economics, you should have a proper plan. They're like, ISB, International School of Hyderabad. It's right, of India. It's right here in Hyderabad. You've got to do it. So I am applying abroad. But my parents want me to keep my options open, make it to Ashoka as well, along with Symbiosis, which is a widely known business school. So it's hard because like for US applications, you're going to spend that much time writing everything he said, statements of purpose, you have your essays and all of that. But it's that at the end, like a year from now, even after all of that, there's a good chance that I'll still be studying here in India where all it takes is an entrance exam. Obviously, that's pretty hard to and all. But like, because I'm in the IB right now, we have extended essay, research papers, all of that. Managing that along with everything that it takes to apply abroad. And at the end, I might go to a university where an entrance exam is what decides. So that sort of stresses me out and causes a lot of procrastination, which, yeah, horrible.
Yeah, as Sir's already said, I am in 11th grade. I haven't started my application process because of obvious reasons. But I would like to say, just as they both said, I mean, there's so much to put into an applications, and especially in India, when you're applying for management courses, each university requires a different kind of process, right? Each university has their own entrance exam, each one different essays, different SOPs, different interviews. And when I think about the timeline of it all, I started to think, do I have enough time to even sleep at this point? I mean, like, I have one day I have this entrance exam, other day right next I have an interview, and then at the same time I'm going to be writing the boards next year, which marks are going to be very important while applying to universities again. And on top of that, my co-curriculars. You know, if I don't do as many co-curriculars as I do now, my heart won't be content. So thinking about the timeline of it all and thinking about how much time and effort that all of this application process is going to take, it really stresses me out right now. But yeah, so
Thank you guys for sharing that. And I know it's not easy to reflect sometimes on what those stressors are. But just in the same vein, maybe in one word, or one line, or one sentence, can you tell us about the individual or the outlet or the activity that you are engaging with that helps relieve that stress? So it could be a counselor figure, it could be going for a run to the gym, whatever it might be. What do you find helps relieve that stress that you guys just outlined?
Trying to complete the application.
Right into it. I love it.
Sleep. Honestly, that's just it. I sleep, I stress over, oh my God, I have so much to complete. Because for me, my parents, they've allowed me to apply abroad. I think this was just a month ago. So I've just set up my Common App. I see the number of, and the problem with universities in the, not the problem, it's amazing, but like the amount of, the number of programs, the variety of programs that are available, right? There's UPenn for business and all of that. And then you realize Cornell has economics and sustainability as a major. And I'm an environmental science student as well. And then you realize this is an option. And then you realize there's game theory specialized thing. So it's, I keep coming across new majors so frequently that it gets so hard to pin it down. So I realize I just diverted from the question, but it's, I sleep, stress, and then the same thing. It's a cycle. That's it.
I'm going to be very cliche about this. I just go to my mom. You know, every time I find a new opportunity, I go to my mom and I tell her, Mama, see, there's this many options. Mama, see, this is what I need to do. And she goes, you realize? My mom's an artist, by the way. So my mom is drawing there. And I'm like, Mama, do you realize this is what's happening? And she goes, do you realize I'm drawing? Do you realize you did this yesterday and you're going to do this tomorrow? So she just says that, and I'm like, can you listen to me? And she's like, no. And then we just keep on rambling on and on. So that's what I do.
Thank you, guys. Even though that was disguised, we use the word stakeholders. We've been using a lot of fancy words to describe it. All three of their answers just outlined a different, very key stakeholder in this process that is in some capacity adding to the stress, but in a lot of capacities helping alleviate it as well. So as we begin to be more mindful and think very carefully about how we want to support our students, again, both inside those counseling rooms as well as with us inside the admissions committees as university reps, fantastic answers, very honest answers once again, but very true to who we are. So a lot has been said about information overload, right? You just mentioned about two different institutions offering very similar majors, but very different ones that might appeal to it. Technology has made the world a smaller place. Technology has made the world a more complicated place. One of our sessions over the course of the weekend or over the last 2 days has been ChatGPT, has been artificial intelligence. And self-admittedly have very little knowledge on it. I think the students have a lot more. So can you guys talk about how the buzz behind AI, ChatGPT has influenced not only how you go about day-to-day classwork, but also maybe now this application process, because it's definitely been the talk of the town on our side of the table. So Yashna, you want to start?
So application process, as I've said, too much procrastination. Haven't come to using ChatGPT as my last resort as of yet, and hopefully won't. We'll see.
But she's cheated on her online exams. So
That was 9th grade. Come on, that was a long time ago. We forget about that. Okay, but for schoolwork, as an IB student, it's very research oriented. You've got extended essays, IAs, and IB, our curriculum has surprisingly allowed us to use ChatGPT with one condition. as long as we know where we can get the facts, we can make a hypothesis out of the information we get of chat gpt, but we should also do external research to finding out if it's from a reliable source. So as an IB student right now, I'm extremely grateful for chat gpt, whether it's an economics paper, business paper, or English literature. We're doing Persepolis and all of that. So finding out the different how a text or a topic is analyzed and all of that, I think ChatGPT has been extremely useful. Yeah.
So I feel like very old school compared to these two when I say I've not used ChatGPT until now. But I've had so many friends who said, yeah, you know what, Niyati, you should use ChatGPT for this homework. It'll get done in seconds. But when coming to applications, I think that there's two ways to it. If you're going to fill out your, say, essay or SOP only based on ChatGPT, that's pretty stupid. Because the admissions officer will completely realize that's not you, one, and two, it won't be personal. But we can use ChatGPT as a reference source. So I think maybe I'll do this when I'm filling out my essay. What I'll do is I'll have a rough draft, whatever I feel, put it out on paper, and then maybe write the same prompt on ChatGPT, see whatever opinions that come up there, and see if, the things that you don't think of that come up on ChatGPT, maybe include those, see how you can add your twist to it and use ChatGPT in a good way, but not stupidly and wrongly. So
I think I'll just quickly echo what Niyati had to say. And that is, ChatGPT cannot do what we can do, what we as applicants to any college around the world can do. But what it can do is support us in a lot of ways in which we don't get support when it comes to trying to understand the grammar and syntax of, say, my personal statement, right? ChatGPT can help me with that. ChatGPT can help me correct my grammar. ChatGPT can give me ways of writing. Okay, it can say that you framed this sentence in this way, but you can frame it in a simpler way, so that's easier to understand rather than complicating it so much. So those are ways in which it can be helpful, and it has been helpful for me. When I have writing assignments from school, I usually write it by myself, or if I have a speech to deliver, I write my speech as I would want it to be, and then put it on ChatGPT and say, hey, ChatGPT, why don't you rate the speech out of 10 for me? And why do you give that? And how can I improve the speech? Right. So those are ways in which it can help us as long as it's being used as a tool. The important question is, why are we not embracing the technology? How much are we going to talk about it? Why are we not sensitizing students about the technology? How many schools today are actually having open-ended conversations about what AI can and cannot do, about how we should not use AI and why we should not use AI in that way? How many schools today are actually doing this? And the reason I say this is because schools, maybe families, maybe adults, have made the same mistake with social media. We still today speak so much about social media. Social media is bad. Social media does this, algorithms, privacy, dopamine, blah, 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 blah. But do we still sensitize students about it? Do we sit with an 8th grader? Do we sit with a group of 14-year-olds, 13-year-olds and talk to them about what happens on social media, how it actually works? Do we explain the monetary side of social media? Do we explain how these companies actually operate? Do we explain the technological structure of social media? If you don't want them to be socially sensitized with social media, at least sensitize them as a subject, right? Talk about it in a computer science class so that they actually understand that the way this operates is actually harmful to you at the end of the day. Because just saying it is and having discussions and debates about it is not going to help at the end of the day. What will help if students are actually sensitized about it? And the longer we continue to talk about artificial intelligence, the later it will get. And we might miss the chance to sensitize students, wherein we're actually in the future going to be able to use this as a beneficial tool rather than actually becoming submissive. So that's very dystopian. But at this rate and at this level of inaction and negligence, we might actually end up there.
How do you get so deep with every question?
I know, right?
I was just going to say, I'm not sure. I know the intended major path is clearly defined in your mind, but maybe we'll ask Ganesh to put you on the opening address for next year. That was fantastic, guys. Very, very in-depth reflections. Sort of sticking on the same lines. It's very evident that you guys are independent, fiercely autonomous in your thought process, which is fantastic to see. At any point of time in the last couple of years, have you questioned whether or not receiving a formal undergraduate degree is required for your next step?
For me, yes. So as I've said, this got me into the whole video editing, film production, all of that. And I've interned last summer. I've interned at a production house. It's nothing major. You just get clips and all of that. And they've said that if you really want to take this into, take it seriously, is deep. They said they would keep a job opening for me after 12th grade. So that sort of made me question if this is what I'm genuinely interested in, video editing, all of that, and all of that. Does having a business major, will that really be helpful for me? Because I know that at the end of the day, if I'm thinking about it, I realize I enjoy video editing, learning that to a certain level, a lot higher than whatever business holds for me in the future. And we know there's a lot of scope with the entire of VFX, with the way India is growing right now. We've got a whole, bunch of animation. Our VFX CJ is also rising to next level. So it's a good scope in the Tollywood industry as well. My father is sort of related to it. So I feel like, there's sort of an opening here for me. So would a business degree really help that? So that was wondering. I mean, I'm still getting a degree. If not, my parents are not going to let me, do it. But yeah, it was a question.
Yeah, so I have questioned this too. As I said before, I had an interest towards political science, and for most part of last year, I really wanted to become. I know this is contradictory, but I really wanted to become a hardcore politician and get into elections or start with the campaigning. And I talked to my parents about it. And firstly, my dad said, "Are you insane?" But then I talked to my mom also, and then I started thinking, do I really need a degree, even if it's management, even if I want to work in a company or especially go into politics, I don't need a degree. And then I talked to my mom about it, and she said one important thing. She said that Niyati, up till your now that I'm in 11th, she said up till your 10th, what difference do you find between 11th and 10th? So I said, it's a completely different level of people, the new people around me, the new subjects around me. He said, well, up till your 12th, you're going to be in a cradle, a box kind of thing, a safe space. And then she said, and if we just push you out into real world, if you just go out in the real world, you're going to become like a flight with no navigation system. And what happens to flights with no navigation system? They fall and they crash. And she said, do you really want to fall and crash and die a burning death? So then I said, okay, that makes sense. And she's like, college is this kind of thing where, you're exposed to so many different kind of people. Apart from just the education point of view, college gives you it gives you independence. Firstly, it tells you how to be independent. And I don't want to do my in university in India. I want to do it in India, but not in Hyderabad. This is one thing. I don't want to do it in Hyderabad mainly because I want to be independent. And that's what she says. College teaches you independence, teaches you new things, and you can slowly slowly go into the world with a proper navigation system. And so so I will be getting my degree. Just clarifying.
What is the alternative to formal education? The question is that we need education not because you get a degree at the end of that 3-year or 4-year course, because it is the time period in which a person becomes themselves. It is the becoming of a person, not only because of the experience that it offers, but also at the age at which it offers that experience. So it allows for a person to take those 3-4 years to decide what kind of person they want to become once they graduate, to decide what they want to do, to decide their purpose. So it's also about giving a person space in that age to think about that, to think about where they want to go and why they want to go there. And that is why a college experience is so important. But I think more importantly, formal education is a must for everyone, because it's the making of a mind, not just the becoming of a person, but also the making of a mind. And we need to make those minds for our tomorrow. And I think Yashna is interested in film and movie editing and making. There are a lot of courses that are offered, especially in the United States, that help you specialize from the undergraduate level in filmmaking. So perhaps pursuing something like that in Yashna's case would at least allow her to have that 4-year experience, that 4-year exposure of meeting people, that 4-year space of deciding where she's going. And that is why a university degree is a must.
I think I speak on behalf of all the university reps in the room that we breathed a huge sigh of relief when all of them finished with saying it's a must, after leading us down a path saying, nah, we're not interested in it anymore. But again, guys, food for thought for us professionals in the room, that the generation that we are recruiting, getting primed to come to our institutions, are no longer thinking that it's a non-negotiable. They have a lot more factors where they are now weighing out as pros and cons as well. As an Indian high school student who did the conventional ICSE and ISC boards, there was no thought behind it. It was you 150% going. It's not, if I'm interested in film, let me intern with a director or a producer. It's not, if I'm interested in politics, let me try and see if I can, campaign with a regional politician. It's phenomenal to see the opportunity that is now available to students across the globe. And it is, again, food for thought for us as administrators to see how are we combating this, as well as celebrating it in and of itself. Into the last two questions, but this one's a fun one. Some familiarity with the application process, whether it's to Indian universities or Western institutions. If I were to give you three the opportunity to add a different component to the application that might celebrate something that you all are doing, how would you change or alter an application process? I know there's a little bit less familiarity with it, but just if you had to add any component from it, what would it be?
I think the application requirements and the process is quite reasonable. And I'll be honest about that. Perhaps with the US application, it could be made a little lighter. You don't have to ask us so many questions. You can get a picture about, you can get an idea about who we are with just a few. So I think it's not about celebrating who we are. It's not about university admission officer understanding who we are. And I'm speaking about this in the context of the US application, of the US Common App, and even individual university applications, that celebrating us a little too much. So please don't do that. Because although there is a thought behind it, and this is something that's been inculcated relatively recently into the application process, of asking all these questions, of trying to bring in diversity into university, into the college campus. But maybe we're doing that a little too much, because it does get overwhelming for us to answer all these questions, especially because we come from a standpoint of fear of, will I be enough? Will this university accept me? And there are so many strings attached to that entire application process.
So the one thing I would like to add or change, right? So I have a list of everything I've done, because, so I can just put it up on the Common App. But I think the problem with us as the COVID batch, at least, so I play football. Okay. I've been playing since 6th grade. I've gone to districts, but this was all in 6th, 7th, and 8th. 3 years consistently, I've gone for districts. I've represented Telangana. But since 8th and 9th and 10th grade, we were in lockdown. Now, these are the years that's important from a college standpoint. I cannot show my interest in football and that I'm good at it and then I wish to keep playing. I cannot show that because the 2 years was an entire stop for football. So all the achievements that I've had was before that. So I thought that if there was a bit of flexibility where you could, sort of express your interest in the sport, because as we know, 11th and 12th and sports, now if I say I want to go away for 3 weeks for a tournament, it's not really possible for 12th graders. So all of this could have been done in 9th and 10th grade, which I unfortunately will not be able to express in my application. So that's the one thing, if it could have been, a little more flexible for us, the COVID batch would have been great.
I think from the Indian universities point of view, as I said, management courses, many of the top universities require an exam of their own. So I think from that point of view, if we could have like a standard exam even for management, like we have for law or for engineering or for doctor, for medicine, if we could have one standard exam for management for across all management colleges, that would be great. And I get why we don't have one. It's because each one wants to understand the student, especially when it comes to management. It's a course which is more student personalized. So each university wants to have their own essays, their own SOPs, and their own interviews. And I say, yes, each university should have their own essays, SOPs, interviews. They can be unique. But when it comes to the entrance exam, if we have one standardized exam, it's easier to take and it saves a lot of time. So that's one thing that I could.
Something I would add, not to the application process as such, but to university admissions at large abroad. If you could look at ways in which we can build better access for everyone when it comes to studying abroad for your undergraduate degree in terms of financial aid. There are numerous scholarships available to Indian students when it comes to their masters, whether that's pursuing it in Europe, whether it's pursuing it in the United Kingdom, or whether it's pursuing it in Canada or the United States. All great destinations to get an education, even in Australia. But when it comes to your undergraduate education, there aren't sufficient opportunities for everyone to be able to have that experience, especially coming from a country like India. And perhaps I'm speaking on behalf of countries in Africa and other Asian countries. So how can we build that access for everyone when it comes to studying an undergraduate degrees at all these amazing universities?
So another a bunch of very thought-provoking answers once again. I'm glad I asked this to the students and not the counselors in the room. As a university rep, I get the feeling that the answers that you guys will be giving me is very, very different. So maybe that's for the coffee after this one. And guys, just to wrap up, this is one of my favorite questions to ask high school students, and the diversity of answers really does make it one of the most rewarding questions. How do each of you define success over the course of the next 3 years of high school and going into college?
Success, that's a huge word, but I think mine would be not having to compromise on your interests in order to get a degree that is, world renowned. So I think that's what it is. Because I've known many people who, like my mom herself, for example, she did a medicine, and I know and she's interested in fashion designing. This is what she was interested in. But I can see the example of how your own passion was was left out in order for something else that people around want you to do. And I know economics, business is something I enjoy as well. But hopefully not in order to be like even as a video editor, I don't want to be the best of it, but I enjoy it. So hopefully not losing that interest and that passion for it while pursuing business, I think that would be a success for me.
Fantastic.
I think success in general, how would I define it, is that actually success is a word that's defined differently from different people, right? Your definition of success will be different from mine. And I've had this discussion with my friends over lunch last year, and I've asked them, what do you want from life? Like in line, what do you want from life? Not what job, not what career, but at the end, what do you want from life? So most of my friends said, nice, happy, secure life, happy family, secure life, stable job. Some said, I want to be a millionaire, own 5 cars, have like $1 billion in my bank account. And for me personally, this is very cliched, okay?
Go for it.
For me personally, my goal in life is to be remembered by people, right? Inspire people, become a role model. And and many people say that success is achieving that goal, but I wouldn't say that. Success it happens throughout the journey of achieving that goal, right? So I'm at the end of the day, I might not be remembered as well as you remember Bill Gates or Mahatma Gandhi, but even if I inspired one person along that way, that's success enough for me. So that's how I would define success personally.
If I may, I doubt we need to define success. Why are we chasing it in the first place? And that goes the same with happiness as well. The concept of happiness and success, as sadly preached by the West, right? There's this exaggerated, overrated idea of happiness and success that we are constantly chasing day in and day out. Why are we chasing it in the first place? Why are we trying to be successful? Why are we trying to be happy? let it come.
A
You
petition
do-
for him to speak in a TED talk, please. We gotta give him a TED talk.
But I'm not chasing it. If it happens, it happens. If delivering a TED talk one day means me being successful, then sure. But I don't want to chase it, because for me, that I don't need to define success because I'm not chasing it in the first place. And I don't need to define happiness because I'm not chasing it. I want to chase a purpose in life. I want to chase change for others in life. I want to chase a just world in life. I don't want to chase success or happiness.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's share it for them. One thing's for certain, Aman, philosophy. Let's get some degrees shortlisted on that list. But again, three very different answers, three very, phenomenally unique answers. Can we just hear it for our student panelists once again, please? I don't think they like me saying this, but they were all petrified in the week leading up to this. We were all put onto a WhatsApp group, and I must admittedly say that travel did not allow me to get in touch with them sooner. But they were petrified of this room being empty. They were petrified of you picking a lot of other events. I will say, guys, I'm 100% certain that you made sure that they made the smart decision by sitting in this room. So thank you once again.
Thank you so much for coming and listening to us. It means a lot.
We do have a little bit of time, so I just wanted to open it out to the audience. I assume that there will be some questions. So do you have any questions for any of the student panelists? We'd love to take them. They would like to take it. So I think I saw a hand.
My name is Shankar. I'm from California State University. If I think back to my time at your age, I'm quite scared because, the way I was, perhaps it's not. So I'm very grateful for all the answers that you gave. I want to switch to think about tomorrow morning you wake up and you're the principal of your school. How would you change your education that we are delivering to you? Because we are educators and we are sort of delivering education to you. What are we doing right or what are we doing wrong?
It's a great question.
You should try to say something if you like.
So I've come from I was in Jubilee's public school before. That was a public school. In each class, you have around 40, 45 students, completely CBSE. And now I'm in the IB. I'm an international school where the class strength, it varies from subject to subject, but it won't go more than 15 to 20 people. So coming from that whole shift as IB, and IB is at least the house, how it provides you the environment to do community service as well as, sports. We have CAS there. So it's 150 hours of mandatory activities that you need. So for CAS, it lets you. So I love dogs. Okay, so we started an NGO where we collared over 100 street dogs with reflective collars. We're neutering over 100 dogs. So as of now, in this particular international curriculum that gives you the environment to explore all of those, sports, activities, public speaking, all of that, I think as of now, I love it the way it is. So no change as of yet.
Sadly for me, I don't study in an IB school or a Cambridge school, so I don't have a CAS component to my academics. I don't have a lot of independent study or research. Yashna was telling us that she's writing research papers for school. We don't get to do that in school. We have to do it outside school, and that too, considering that school goes on until well late into the evening. So I think that's one thing that I'd love to see change in CBSE and CISE schools and other Indian boards, in terms of integrating more independent thought, independent study, and independent everything. Can we please free our schools a little more, our Indian schools a little more, and integrating all of that into our curriculum and genuinely integrating it, not just for namesake. I think second is what I've observed personally, not just within my own school, but also beyond, is that we don't have enough discussions, enough debate, with our teachers, among ourselves. We are not questioning our textbooks. We are not questioning what knowledge already exists, because we are not taught to do that. We are not taught to ask questions. We aren't taught how to learn, because all we are taught is to learn certain things, and only to learn that. If somebody sometimes comes up with a little extra information or disagrees with the teacher, they can end up in serious trouble. And more than the teacher, the system is to be blamed for that. So if we can change that, if we can have an open, truly open space in the classroom. Tagore once said, where the mind is free and the head is held high. And he was talking about the country when he wrote that poem. But perhaps let's start with our classroom and have a classroom where the mind is free and the head is held high.
If I could just add to that, co-curriculars, extracurriculars, yes, they should be diversified. But in terms of academics, I think there are a lot of my friends also till 10th, we are taught that we have 5 subjects, right? Especially in CBSE and SSA, we have 5 subjects, and most importance given to maths and science. And so when you're in 11th grade, you are taught to go to either MPC, BPC. Now, many of my friends, to be very honest, I have friends who are very interested in, say, business management, but then they have this sort of fear that if I go into management, art, or anything else, you won't get that stable life that you're looking for. So they take up MPC, BPC, and then now also I get calls from my friends. They're like, I tell them, I had such a hard day at school, and you're like, you're not doing 4 hours of math, Niyati. Last I checked, you're not sitting in a chemistry class. I am. So I think from 9th itself, students have a sort of an idea as to what they want to do in life. So if 9th and 10th, those 2 grades, if you can give them as an exploration grade, as in universities, the first year is for you to explore your major, try as many majors as possible. If you can do that at a school level, if you can do 9th and 10th for them to pick, okay, like say half a year, you can pick this subject. If you don't like it, you can switch in the other half, because you don't have that much liberty in 11th and 12th, and you have the time to explore it in 9th and 10th. So if we can have that kind of system, then I think that will be great.
Thank you for those answers. Brave answers, because there are some principals and counselors of the students in this room. So the way you framed it, sir, was good. I think we've got time for one more question. Okay, we've got 2 hands. Okay, we'll fit both in. Can we get the mic? Thank you so much. Oh, we have 1 minute, so thanks.
I'll start with a wish, please. Please be our thought leaders. Would really help. We really need you guys. And with that, I actually am supposed to present something to my own university, so I'll take your help in that. What do you think in terms of application processes of a university, in case we take away everything and just make it merit-based? You meet the requirements, you get in. What do you think? Does that simplify the process? And when I say that, I mean no resumes, no extracurriculars, and nothing, just academics. So what would you say to that?
Just to clarify, by merit, you'd mean only academic merit?
I mean, again, I'm supposed to write this to the university. So any ideas on that?
Absolutely not. Please, no.
I think it already, so we could sort of take a comparison here. It happens in India already. Indian universities give admissions based solely on academic merit, while US universities, UK universities, and Australian universities look beyond academics. Not Australian universities. Okay, all right. I think you're from the University of Sydney, right? Yeah, all right. So they don't. So Australia and India, they don't look at the holistic profile of a student, while the UK does to some extent in their own way, and the US does in a much wider sense. Look at the kind of experience a student would receive in the United States or the United Kingdom, and the kind of experience a student receives here in India. Why is it that India's top universities, and they are brilliant spaces, brilliant people running it, excellent professors, and there is a reason why we are the human resource factory of the world. And I don't think there is anyone who'd want to debate that. We are, and we have excellent universities. But why is that one component missing in India that US universities have and UK universities have? Why is the experience in those universities so much better? they still do rank a lot better on a global scale than Indian universities do. Why is that? Perhaps the academic, the emphasis on academic merit before and after gaining admission into the university is to blame for that. Because just that sole emphasis on academic merit, this is what it has done for us. While a more holistic view of it all has done something very different. So you have your answers in your present.
I am mindful of time. I just want to quickly wrap up, but thank you for that. Ma'am, I'm so sorry. If you can ask your question to them individually after that, be yeah. Guys, thank you very much once again for joining us. Like I said, this last block is can be challenging, but we really appreciate. I think the students appreciate you guys joining them and having their voices heard. I don't know about you guys, but I'm feeling exceedingly energetic, exceedingly optimistic, and a tad bit scared of Aman. But they've been absolutely phenomenal. So can we hear it for them one more time, please? Thank you very much, guys. You guys were brilliant.